Hello, humans. I can see that everybody is doing a wonderful day, and I hope everything is going well. First off, I want to say that this tier list video is based off of my own opinions and my own experience and stuff like that. And so I wanted to kind of make a fun little tier list on the killers based solely on how fun that they actually are. Now, I'm going to be going through S tier all the way to D tier, saying that I'd rather be walking my dog because let's be honest, walking a dog is incredibly fun, and who would want to be with these killers? So I'm gonna go through, my favorite killers to both play as and against, and it's gonna be into three categories. The first category, fun to play as and against. Second category will be how well-rounded they are, and the third category are details that I like or dislike about that said killer. So first things first is that I'm going to actually go through the entire setup from start to finish, including Xeno. Now, I don't know if this video will actually be up either before or after, because I'm recording this literally the day before Xeno comes out. It was supposed to be a little while ago, but, I was making other videos. If you want to see any more of those videos that I've actually made up on this channel, there should be like a little card up in the top. So be sure to check that out. But in the meantime, let's get right into it. So for my first one, of course, we're going to start with the top of the list, which is Trapper. Of course, Poster Boy for DBD. Trapper is probably is the most iconic, killer in Dead by Daylight. You think of Dead by Daylight, and that's Trapper. Now, for the first category, fun to play as and or against. The first category, it's not looking great for my own experience. Playing as can be satisfying. I'm not gonna lie there. Playing as can be very, 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 very satisfying when you have careless survivors. Now, when you don't, it's frustrating. He's an M1 killer first and foremost, and I feel like I have to run the strongest add-ons that you can on him. Now, when it comes to playing against him as survivor, a little bit of a yawn fest. And that's why I place Trapper over in C when it comes to category 1. Category 2, how well-rounded they are, I think the add-ons are okay. I don't think that they're too bad. However, it's unfortunate that his add-ons really do shape how he is playstyle-wise, in very poor playstyle for that matter. Like doing the basement Trapper, I think that's kind of unfortunate that if you're going against a good team, that's one of the most effective ways to handle a Trapper. And usually that person just gets left in basement like a basement Bubba. So that can't be helped. And let's be honest, Trapper is a beginner's killer in my opinion. So they are well-rounded in the sense for beginners, but if you're a more experienced player, both playing as and against, he's a very weak killer. And that's the reality, is that Trapper is a weak killer. For beginners, he might seem like a really cool killer, but the more you play him, the more you'll realize how weak he actually is. And with MMR being the way it is, you could be a really beginner's Trapper, and you could get a team that could just, you won't get a hook. Unless that's just the reality of it, which is unfortunate. And that also falls under C tier. Category 3, details of the killer that I like or not like about the killer. First of all, I will say that when it comes to, his cosmetics and things like that, mechanics, I like the idea of, bear traps, and I like the idea of a Trapper being very professional about that. And I think they did a really good job rounding that character in that way. However, what's not enjoyable is that the fact that there have been maps, there are very few places to hide your traps. Traps are very, very obvious on maps now, and there are so many ways to counter them. It's not enjoyable as I wish it could be, even though if you are lucky enough to have a careless survivor, it's satisfying. That's probably the best thing, is when you're just standing there and the guy's looking at you and you're like, bye-bye, and then you catch him. Like, that stuff's fun, I will admit that. But overall, it's very on the low side, and it can be a very just kind of like lulling experience. Like, okay, I'm just doing this for the blood points at this point. So for me, Trapper is a C tier killer. Okay, next killer that we have is the Wraith. Now, not to be confused with my name, I actually have my user, the Wraith. I've had this much longer before. I actually started playing DBD in 2020 when the Blight was released, and I remember that chapter quite well. But people started making connections. Oh, so you must have based his name off the Wraith. And that's not exactly true. I based my name off of a different character from something I'm actually creating in my off time. Besides the point, Wraith, I feel like, is a great beginner's killer. If you were to start playing Dead by Daylight and you asked me what killer would I start off on, I would say Wraith. Wraith is fun to play as and against. He's very easy to get. He's very easy to understand. He makes M1ing feel good, and it doesn't feel overall punishing because you can do a very fun hit and run style. So playing as and against, even as a survivor, I find it fun looping a Wraith, because with that, with his add-ons and stuff, it can kind of shake up a little bit of how you play against the Wraith, which is nice. I like that, especially for an M1 killer who's literally just M1, and his strongest ability is literally just cloaking and uncloaking and being able to pounce on people. I'm fine with that. I find it fun. Overall, I think it's, he's well-rounded in that sense, and which goes into my second category of how well-rounded they are, which is add-ons and the way that you can play Wraith. I think they're really cool. You can make some really fun builds with Wraith. You can really be kind of silly and mess with people a lot as Wraith, and I like that. So I would definitely without a doubt in my mind say that he is a fun killer to play as and against. They're very well rounded. As for like details of the killer and things that make the killer enjoyable, obviously being able to jump on people before they even know it with certain add-ons and stuff, that's fun. Same thing goes with that. I enjoy stealth killers in the sense of you can do a little surprise, because DBD is a horror game and I like that. And he adds a lot of versatility. You can make all kinds of really cool builds around Wraith's abilities, and his add-ons allow you to do that, which I like. So I would say definitely a fun game. Wraith is A tier in that sense, and also, again, really good for beginners. So if you're a beginner watching this video, I recommend Wraith. Alright, next one is Hillbilly. Okay, fun to play as and as against. I have the massive amount of respect for those who devoted themselves to learning and maining Hillbilly, especially in this economy. And playing against them, I love looping a Hillbilly. I'm just going to say that right now, and I've said this many times in my streams and stuff. I also stream on Twitch. So you'll catch me saying that if it's a Hillbilly, I enjoy a Hillbilly. I really do enjoy a Hillbilly because they're fun. Whether you're a cross-mat Hillbilly or a Hillbilly and that knows how to work their chainsaw around a loop, you have my absolute respect. I am sorry that behavior is dissing the killer as it is, but overall, I think this killer is fun to play as and against. But I don't have the skill level and the time dedication to main Hillbilly. But if I could, I definitely would, and especially if I was around playing it in 2016 when they first came out with this killer. Actually, when they first came out with this killer in general, I wish I had the chance to know what Insta-Saw ability was to enjoy that. And I honestly wouldn't be against Insta-Saw because that would actually give him a threat level, because I don't feel like he has the highest threat level, but overall, it's very fun. Now, for category 2 of the well-roundedness, I don't think this goes without saying, but his add-ons and his skill level are his skill level of just doing a curve is up there. I'm learning it, but it's up there. As for his add-ons and his power, I feel they need to be really buffed. They need to be played better. They need to be well-rounded a little better, because I think they need to bring back certain ways that Billy was played, because I don't feel like he's threatening enough. And so I don't think he's well-rounded in this economy well enough, and I think Billy needs a love. Hashtag justice for Billy. Category 3 is interesting. Category 3, details of killers that make that killer enjoyable and not. Okay, I can't really say what doesn't make this killer enjoyable. Cosmetics are really creative and cool. I like the whole, you can run an undetectable Billy build on this and just catch survivors by surprise. You can do a sniper's Billy, you can do a long range hits, you can just go around the map like constantly. His versatility in that sense is very fun, and I feel this killer can have a lot of joy in the sense of just like getting across the map and being able to down someone or snipe them, and you're just like, it's satisfying. Things that I just don't find enjoyable is mainly because I just don't have the patience of being able to like hold a chainsaw for so long and then just go. But don't get me wrong, I've done it once before and it felt really good. So he's very fun, would play again, definitely. Hillbilly's right up there. So yes, absolutely. I wish I knew Hillbilly in his instant saw days. I really do, because he's fun. I just wish that behavior would give him a little more love. And also, because of how maps are being designed now with all the clutter, there's more clutter in maps and stuff. I feel like Hillbilly is being robbed of his enjoyment, even though he's a very fun killer. Which, if you're curious about him, go in with a Swift or a Kill Your Friends lobby, which is basically customs, and practice with him, and you'll understand why Hillbilly can be so much fun. And if you get Careless Survivors, well, in a public, it goes without saying, Hillbilly's a lot of fun. All right, next one is Nurse. Nurse, I'm going to be straight up with you. When it comes to playing fun as against or as, it's a 50-50, and that's where Nurse goes. 50-50. Because here's the weird trade-off with Nurse when it comes to fun. If you're having a good time, chances are the other team is not. And if you're going against her and you're having a good time, chances is that Nurse is not. There is no in-between. That's just the reality of Nurse. She's the strongest killer in the game, yes, but when it comes to playing as and against, it's a 50-50. You either are enjoying it on your side and the person's not, or that other person is enjoying it and you are not. That's just the reality of Nurse because of how strong she is. She is in a better condition than she once was. Back when I remember when it first started, I mean, she was just strong as hell, and I remember before the exposure the exposure nerf, she was incredibly oppressive. Like, you got into a game, the best you could do is try and see if you can outrun her for at least a minute. If you couldn't make it 10 seconds, yeah, that's pretty much average for the average gamer. And which brings me into my category 2 of well-roundedness. Add-ons, since her rework and the debuff to exposure, she's in a healthier state than she was, because oh dear lord, she was in bad places. They are only to just kind of assist and kind of like, add a little bit, but not too much. So they're in a better place now than they were. She's still a strong killer, but you still get the same kind of 50-50 feel. And when it comes to versatility, the add-ons don't really allow that much. The only one I could actually say would be like really enjoyable would be literally something called Chase Nurse, which is basically she gets her speed back to a normal killer. By the way, she runs slower than a survivor if you're just holding W. So don't hold W with Nurse. But if you're running this particular build, you can actually be back to your normal speed rate as a normal killer and just chase them, and it can be really fun because survivors expect you to blink and they end up walking into you and giving you free hits most of the time. It's kind of fun. So yeah, definitely that. And details of the killer that make her an enjoyable killer or not, again, are in the 50-50. It's one, understanding her blinks, understanding her fatigue, understanding her timings, how you do the hitbox. A lot of times, if you're motion sick, you have to kind of jerk your camera around after you blink if you land on a survivor, because the hitboxes can be so weird and bizarre and you can easily miss. So flicking is definitely a thing, so you gotta be careful of that. If you're a skilled nurse, I do respect the fact that you're able to pinpoint those without any assistance or anything like that, so well done to you, but at the same time, it can be a 50-50 where it's just like that. Cosmetics, things like that, I think they do a really good job with Nurse. There's nothing to complain with that. They have a really good art department at Behavior, so I think they do fine on that. Next one is Big Boy Michael Myers. He's one of my favorite killers in Dead by Daylight, in the sense of that it brings one of my favorite movies, one of the 2 top favorite movies of my life, and got me into horror, Halloween. And having him in the game is a lot of fun. And what I do like about Michael Myers, although he's not at all the strongest killer and needs to be somewhat tweaked for this day's economy, he does still offer different ways of playing, whether it be Stealth Myers, Mori, or regular Myers. I like that. You can just kind of have fun with it, mess with people. I like that. There's a lot of versatility, so definitely a fun game killer. And I'd put that above Wraith. And I like that about him when it comes to playing as and against. Now, how well-rounded he is, I think I just mentioned this, but he does need a little more tweaks. He needs to be a little more refreshed for today's economy of DBD, because now it's a lot about speed, and he needs help with add-ons, he needs help with perks. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. I don't think the devs are going to change much, but it would be nice. Next thing would be category 3, which is details of the killers that make the killer enjoyable or not. I honestly, the only thing I wish is that, maybe some new cosmetics and weapons from Michael, and maybe, something like that. But overall, I don't really have much to complain about in the sense of, like, whether or not there are details that I would take away. I like the idea of, being able to be different types of play styles of Myers. So I like the idea of having multiple play styles instead of 1 or 2, which is really nice. So that's really nice. And I know a lot of people want the whole bedsheet Myers, which is basically in the first movie, if you don't know what that is, it's basically he's wearing a bedsheet and glasses. Um in one of the scenes before he offs somebody. So overall, fun game. I do enjoy Michael Myers, and if you get like a good undetectable Myers or Scratch Mirror Myers, my personal favorite, it can be a really fun game. We're gonna talk about Hag. Hag is a fun as in category 1, sorry, I had a brain fart. Fun to play as and against. Okay, first of all, Hag has a little bit of a learning curve. Unlike most of her playstyles, which is to camp and stuff like that, she can be very versatile in hit and run playstyle. I've tried it, it's fun. I enjoy it because it causes so much chaos. When you can cause so much chaos in a game, I find that really fun and entertaining because that makes you a threat of a power, and people have to work around it and be adaptive to it by picking up their pace. And having that pace causes them to slip. Sorry, and panic and make poor decisions, which is ideal. And you can also have what's called a chase one, which you can body block and just be like at choke points and stuff like that. It's fun, you know. You can play mind games and stuff like that. So I think she's in a really good condition in that way. When it comes to well-roundedness, her changes to her add-ons, especially her most strongest add-ons, I like what they've changed. I think Hag is in a good place, and that since boons have been nerfed, hit and run is better. It's in a healthier condition, so it allows her to be, you know, played a little bit easier. So I would say fun game, and it can be enjoyable and whatnot. Details of the character, I think cosmetically, sound-wise, they did really good with her. Again, that goes to the artists. The only thing I'd probably say that I just don't like is that when you have really good survivors and stuff, it's like playing Trapper. It can be really hard, and then you're an M1 killer at 110, which feels frustrating, but that's... Woo, Doctor. So many people I've had in my stream say they hate Doctor, but they can respect creative builds out of it. One of my personal favorites is the Impossible Skill Check Doctor. In indoor maps, this is a really good build. Smaller maps, also a really good build. But on open, bigger maps where you can't really defend your totems as effectively, it's a struggle. But otherwise, really good. He can be fun to play as and against in the sense of like, okay, for me, I like playing as Doctor. I will say that. Playing as Doctor, I find it really fun. Whereas playing as Survivor, I find it a little slightly annoying. In the sense of like just the constant electrifying and everything like that. I have nothing against to a good Doctor player. It really don't. It's just a stupid little thing. I think it's just the idea of just screaming constantly just gets kind of it's annoying. But otherwise, it's I like the killer. It's not a bad killer, and he's the most effective tracker of a killer, and I like that. And he can deny loops very efficiently, even strong ones. It's really cool in that sense, and he can actually go against God Palette extremely well. Not many killers can do that, and he can do that with a little trick. So I like that. As for his well-roundedness, his add-ons are just weird. They're the definition of weird. God, I don't even know how to explain it. Reading his add-ons is like reading an encyclopedia, number one. Number two, they are so specific, it makes it a little weird. And then there are some that just make his power actually worse than they would. So what I would recommend is that stick to his best add-ons, which are range or different levels of insanity. And of course, his chest pieces, his iridescence are really, really good. And I recommend just sticking with those because they make him really, really seem like a good top tier killer, even though he's pretty much probably I would say a low A, high B tier. So that's me. And I would definitely put him. I would put him more in a fun game, but below Hag. You know, in the sense of like creativity. Don't get me wrong with add-ons and stuff, which goes into the details of category 3. With add-ons and certain things and certain playstyles, people have gotten creative with what you can do with Doctor. Like his illusionary Doctors, it's fun. I've done it myself. It's really entertaining. I love messing with survivors that way. Even if they get 4-man outs, I'm not looking for, 4-man outs. I'm looking for just having fun, and Doctor, again, allows that. Same thing with Michael. He allows that. Hillbilly, he allows that. Wraith, again, allows to having, fun and being creative and not feeling like you're getting punished for it, but everyone has a good time. And I think Doctor can do that too. impossible skill check build. Someone really liked a couple of my impossible skill check builds. They found that actually fun. So I was like, I'm down for it. I'm down for it. So I have nothing to complain about that. So yeah. All right, next one is Huntress. Okay, Huntress. I don't know if you guys know this, but I just as much as Hillbilly, Huntress is S tier, would play again. Her hatchets are satisfying, long range, short range, just great killer. Tunneling camping, if you're going against a really good team, she's great at it. Greediness, she's great at it. Around loops, good, bad, she's great at it. Like, she's a great killer, and goes into my next category of well-roundedness. Her add-ons are awesome. Her power is easy, simple to understand. There's no anything overly complex, and she makes up her 110 speed with her hatchets, and you can snipe with them. You can be stealthy with her. It's just so creative. What you can do with Huntress, and it's just so much fun. Like, it's just so much fun. And going against a Huntress, you never know if you're going to get a Huntress that you can really juice, or you never know you're going to get a Huntress who's going to mortar you from across the map where she spawns the second you get into a match. It's fun. It's fun, and I enjoy it. Details and other characters. Okay, first of all, the Lullaby, creepy as hell, especially when you have an undetectable Huntress and it's non-directional. You're frightened, and I like that. When it comes to intimidation factor, I do find that fun. Cosmetics, I think they do a great job with her cosmetics. She has really cool cosmetics, and I don't think they failed about that. So yeah, overall, would play again, both as and against, multiple times. Huntress is just tier god. Is a great example of a good, well-rounded, fun killer overall. All right, next one is Bubba. Now, here's a interesting take that I have to say. Bubba, for me, has become more of a meme killer than he has become more of an actual killer in Dead by Daylight, mainly because of his stereotype of camping the hook. And that actually falls him more under Wraith, believe it or not, because it's become more of just a joke. Because, you know, you see a Bubba and you're like, oh, who's it gonna be? Who's he gonna camp? And then if it's you or somebody else, you know, I like making the joke, you're the chosen one. So when you're up against like a good Bubba or anything like that, it can be fun. And if you're up against a bad Bubba, it can be fun. Same thing with playing as him. You can have a really good time and, you know, just kind of mess around and everything like that. Be the classic Insidious Bubba, or you can just kind of be a speedy Bubba and do crazy mind games and stuff like that, because people worry about how you can use your chainsaw, and I like it. With how well-rounded, it's like Hillbilly's add-ons. I think they need a little more tweaking, because there are only 3-4 good add-ons that I actually use on Bubba. And, you know, that's basically how it would. When it comes to details about the character and everything like that, he's very basic. His skins come from, of course, the movies and stuff like that. Sounds and audio, it's basically a carbon copy of, you know, almost Hillbilly, but, you know, I don't complain much, because, you know, it's a Bubba. Again, to me, it's like a joke. I kind of laugh at Bubbas. I'm not scared of Bubbas. They're just fun as a whole. So that's me. Now, next one, unfortunately, breaks my heart, but I'm a fan of the Freddy Krueger series. When it comes to playing as and against, it's an M1 killer, playing and through with no power. That's basically what it feels like, and his teleporting is terrible. It's sleepy, it's dull. Ironically, he makes survivors go to sleep both in the game and in life, and in real life behind the screen. So yeah. As with how rounded they are, they're not well rounded. Their add-ons are terrible. The power is a joke. I'm not worried when there's Nightmare. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just work my way to the next game, and I don't care if I die or if I lose, because I'm like, most times I actually get out of the exit gates when it comes to a Freddy. They're very easy to handle. And with the add-ons, either making it a snare or a pallet, it's one or the other. It's never a mix of both, so it's very predictable on how they're gonna play. There's no other versatility that you can add to him because of his Lullaby. His Lullaby can be actually kind of a good way of knowing whether, when you're oblivious in the dream world, if you will, you can tell when he's coming close, because the Lullaby gets louder. And that just tells you, oh, okay, well, here he comes. So the Lullaby is kind of a dead giveaway. It's basically, you know, it's the opposite of what Huntress is, where it doesn't sound like it gets louder, it's just, you just listen to it. Whereas Freddy, it gets louder as he gets closer, which is basically a terror radius in itself. You just gotta pay really close attention. So he's not a good killer. He's not a good killer. He's not well rounded. Not fun to play as or against. It is cool, you know, the sounds and stuff, but those are the only details that actually make him cool. Is that and such. But I also wish it was Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, instead of Rorschach, personally, because I think Robert Englund is a better Freddy Krueger. So, yeah. All right, next one is Pig. I love the Saw series. I really do. But when it comes to Pig, if you're not running specific builds, she is frustrating. Against good survivors, she's weak. Whereas against bad survivors or careless survivors, she can be very fun. Certain builds you can use to make her traps a little more effective. The RNG is very, very against her as a power, and they just will nerf her. They nerf Pig. You know, oh, Wraith is too strong. This is just me being hypothetical. Wraith is too strong. Let's nerf Pig. You know, and that's oops, sorry. That's the mentality, unfortunately, that I feel like Pig has kind of gotten, which is unfortunate. And I think the whole bear traps and everything are great for slowing down the game, but if RNG is against you, you're gonna have a hard time. And if you're not running certain builds or certain add-ons, it doesn't make it fun. It just makes it like, okay, I gotta slow this game down now, and then you apply the traps and stuff like that. So yeah, it can be feeling very much M1 like, and it can feel like just a game. But I will say it's definitely better than Freddy, but her RNG is probably, in my opinion, worse than Trapper when it comes to people trying to free themselves. So yeah, it's just a game. Sorry, Pig, but it's just a game. All right, next one is Clown. Clown, again, I would say above Freddy and Pig in that sense, but definitely below Trapper in the fact that his ability is kind of like, I feel like I'm being walked through, like someone's holding my hand to help me in chase. I don't like it. I really don't, because I want to learn how to be better in chase and stuff like that. And when it comes to the add-ons and stuff, they're all over the place. His most powerful add-ons are like ridiculously strong. Even though that I know that they've nerfed his strongest one, which is if you hit someone directly with a bottle, I believe that's a redhead pinky finger, they get exposed. It doesn't matter. I mean, they did a better job reworking the iridescent head on Huntress than they did the bottle than the redhead pinky finger on Clown. That's, yeah. And if the Clown's both good and bad, guess what? He's still an M1 killer. He's not strong without the help of certain perks, so he's not fun. He's just a game, you know. And details and stuff, I don't like clowns. I don't have chlorophobia myself. I know some family members they have chlorophobia, and if they saw this killer, they'd be terrified. And this guy is basically a carbon copy of like John Wayne Gacy. He basically is John Wayne Gacy, and he was made for a time of Dead by Daylight where looping became really, really strong, and that was the reason why they made him for that time. But now times have changed, and there are ways around looping and stuff like that, and there are stronger killers. Why run Clown when you can run Deathslinger, or Pyramid Head, or Blight, or frickin' Nemesis, Artist, Xeno, Singularity, Spirit? Like, there's so many better killers than him. There just are. So yeah, Sea Killer, just a game. Spirit is a challenge. I find Spirit a really interesting challenge, and would definitely put her above Michael and stuff. Definitely a fun game in the sense of the mind games that you can do, because it instead of using your eyes, you're having to use your ears a lot in those games, and it makes it all the more fun in that challenge. And I like a good challenge, and Spirit invites that, to do a playstyle of countering her and playing as her that you don't see in any of these other killers, except for probably now Xeno, if you think about it, because of the tunnels, but we'll get more to that later. But it makes it fun in the fact that instead of using line of sight, you have to use your ears to figure out where she's coming from and where she's positioned in her spirit form, if you will, which makes that fun. I like that personally. So I like the challenge. I wish I could verse more spirits to kind of understand it better and really tune my ears to it. But her pick rate has really dropped since her rework of add-on. So there's that. Next one is Legion. Okay, Legion I actually don't mind playing against, as weird as this sounds. I would definitely put Legion right here with Wraith in the sense of they're both M1 killers, easy to understand, the power is not overly complicated. And when it comes to blood points, I go to Legion. Legion is a blood point factory. Such a blood point factory, it's not even funny. It's just crazy what Legion can do when it comes to blood points. But if you have a really good team, Legion is exposed for how actually low tier of a killer. So in my opinion, if I were to say power, if you're up against a really strong team, he's revealed as a B tier killer. Against careless survivors, he can seem like an A tier killer because, you know, you get 5 hits and you're done. A good team is going to spread out. I'm practicing for a win streak on my buddy Rainey's channel. If you want, I can actually put a little card up here as a link so you can check him out. He helped me out in my previous videos. And he just, you know, we just spread out to, all of us were in 4 corners of the map. Legion would get 1 hit and then have to immediately get out of power because there was no one else nearby. It's just so easy to counter him. But when you're in a pub match, people love their health states. They love being healed. With Legion, you don't have to heal. As weird as it sounds, don't always heal with Legion because you're setting yourself up for, 1, being in a group, and 2, him getting more hits with his power. That's just the reality of it. So being spread out as much as possible, healing not as often, is great. If you have a med kit, go ahead and use it if you can, but if you can't, don't worry about it. Focus your gens. You're gonna win. Get out of that game. All right, next one is Plague. Plague I like in the sense of playing as and against. I think Plague is very unique in the sense of her power is so, her power is so risk and reward. You risk the chance of the survivor team, if you're playing as her, not cleansing and not giving you your power for the longest time and you're M1ing. Or, now if you're playing against, you run the risk of, if I cleanse, she gets her power. But if I don't cleanse, she can also down me as an M1 if I'm in a really unsafe area. So there's a really high risk and reward. I like that kind of play. Her power is, she can control most of it. She's basically hard mode in Dead by Daylight, and I like that. And her style of that is really good. Now, when it comes to her well-roundedness, her add-ons, I have nothing to complain about. You know, they're very just more of like, let's give you a little bit of an assist here, not too much though. You know, I don't have anything against it, and stuff like that. But unfortunately, don't add for versatility. You can't make like a sneaky, you know, Plague. I guess you could, but I haven't seen an effective build done because 1, she's a 7-foot tall woman. She's tall, man. Okay, you can see her coming from a mile away, even in a tall map. I'm just even in an indoors map, you see her coming a mile away because she's just tall. So playing her undetectable is kind of it's debatable. But she can be very good in the sense of making the game just really difficult, and not a lot of killers can do that, so it's actually really well done, and countering her can be risk and reward, like I said, so I like that. Details about that killer, again, her power is really cool. I like it. Adds for interesting gameplay. Some people just don't because, again, they like their health states. Same debate with Legion. And of course, I think when it comes to style and work, I think she's probably the most artistic looking killer in the whole game. And so for all of that, I'm going to put her right here below Spirit. It's a fun game. I enjoy the challenge. And she also looks like a badass in most of her outfits. Like, I like the space age ones that they come out with, and some of the more elegant ones. I think they're really, really cool. So she is really cool killer in those senses too. All right, next one, who I like to call the Deadpool of Dead by Daylight, which is Ghostface. I like Scream. When I told my mom that, hey, you know, they have Ghostface in Dead by Daylight, she thought that was the coolest thing because she was a fan of the Scream series. Not the recent ones, not the recent movies, by the way. The first 3, she likes those ones a little bit better, which I can understand. I can totally understand. They're much better than they are now. That's, of course, a hot topic. But when it comes to Ghostface, I think he is the best undetectable killer in the whole game because you can be incredibly sneaky, you can make survivors confused, and he brings the whole horror factor back into Dead by Daylight, much like how Michael Myers can, but he does it better. He does it better than Wraith. He does it better than Michael Myers in those instances. But he's also an M1 killer, so if you have a good team, you're not going to get much value out of him. And they're going to know that if they're up against a Ghostface, they're going to keep pressure on you as much as they can. keep you out of your stock. If you're an open map, you're screwed. But if you're an indoors map, you can manage with that. But if you're not, you're gonna have a hard time. It's just it's facts. But overall, fun killer. I like him. And playing as him, it's always fun. Just sneaking up on survivors when they least expect it and scaring the crap out of them because it's fun. All right, next one. I love this killer. It's sad that you cannot get him anymore. A couple of my buddies unfortunately cannot get him because they closed the DLC, which is Demogorgon. Playing as and against this killer is just as fun as going against a Huntress. I do enjoy it, and he goes right there. S tier would play again because he's one of my favorite killers. I actually mained him for quite a long time. I used to be a demo main. That's going to be replaced though. So rest in peace, Demo. But I do enjoy Demogorgon a lot. His Mori is cool, stuff like that. As for his well-roundedness, again, he is a pinnacle of what I feel is a great example of a good killer. Because his power is not oppressive. His power allows you to traverse, and he also has a lunge, which is great, So he has a way of getting at range, but it's not overly oppressive. It's easy to understand and such. And of course, we all know hitboxes. They're like Huntress or Hillbilly or anybody who can do range. It's hitboxes. Hitboxes suck. Let's be honest here. So there are all these like factors that go into Demogorgon that make him a really good killer. You can play him in multiple ways. His add-ons allow him to do that. You can be sneaky. You can be what's called a Devour Gorgon, which is basically defending your Devour Hope indefinitely. And if you're up against good survivors, you're not going to get much value out of it, but you still do a lot of damage. Get value out of this build. Really, really well done, and I think that killer is really good. And I think Demogorgon should come back, but I don't know if the developers ever would. But I think that's more of a legal issue than more than anything because it's Netflix. So, yeah. As for other details, again, like cosmetics, they had a great run with him and everything. It's just disappointing that you can't get him anymore. And he's not worth the $200 of buying on a different account. Let's be honest. Don't do it. All right. Next one is Oni. Oni is fun. He is fun to play as. It's just so fun going across the map in your power, and you see someone, you're like, target sighted, bam, smash him into the floor. It's fun. I enjoy it. I have no complaints about that because it's fun doing that. Playing as against, I'm always on my toes because I want to play as cautious as possible. That's the best way to handle Oni. A lot of people don't like this, but don't greed with Oni. Just don't. You want to delay that first hit as much as possible, and I'm saying this to beginners out there. If you see an Oni and he's coming after you, drop the damn pallet. I don't care if it's God pallet, drop the pallet. Because if you delay that early game pressure of him getting his power, late game, he's going to struggle because guess how many gens are left? 1. Now he's got to figure out how to get hits. He's got to figure out how to use his power more efficiently because if you stay healed and you play safe, he gets his power less. And that's ideally what you want. So that way, when he gets his power, guess what? People are either stealthing off in the distance in places that if he goes to, he loses a gem, and stuff like that. So he's got good counterplay, but he's also really good to play as and against. With his well-roundedness, only a few add-ons really come to mind. And he can be very versatile in different ones. It's like playing Hillbilly with like Tinkerers. If you get your power and then you just come around the corner without somebody seeing you, it's great. But he also glows bright red and can be seen across the map. So his stealth capabilities are very much on the down low, but he's still fun to play. And his audio and stuff is really cool. So I will say, definitely you can have a fun game with the Oni, but it definitely goes below Ghostface because Ghostface you can get a good jump out of it and such, but it can be a lot of fun. All right, now here's a good topic. I know there's one person out there who is waiting to hear what my review about Deathslinger is. So Deathslinger, okay, in the right hands, Deathslinger is a really good killer to do style points on. If you're good with your aim and everything, Deathslinger rewards you for that good aim. He can be very strong, he can be very fun, and he uses Save the Best for Last better than most killers I've seen in games. Probably the best one. And I feel the new alien perk that what was the name of it? It's like Rush Brutality or something like that, where if you hit somebody, you get a 10% boost of speed for 10 seconds. And if you pair that with Save the Best for Last on a Deathslinger, you're catching up and you're not making distance. The Survivor's not making distance. Playing as takes skill in the sense of doing trick shots. And if you understand his hitbox really well, you're gonna have a good time. And so I have nothing against that. I find that very enjoyable. The mind games that you can do with Deathslinger are a lot of fun. It's like going against a Huntress, especially if you're going against a competent Deathslinger. My buddy Rainy, he is a Deathslinger main. I've mentioned him before. He plays Deathslinger almost exclusively. He does play other killers, but he plays Deathslinger almost exclusively because he can do some pretty nasty shots and everything like that. So he's very good at what he can do as a Deathslinger, and I think he could definitely vouch for the fact that Deathslinger is very fun to play as and as against, because you'd be surprised at what kind of shots you can hit with him. That being said, he's also 110 killer, and I am terrible with my shots. If you saw me ever play Call of Duty, which you probably never will because I don't play Call of Duty anymore, I'm terrible with him. So for me, he goes definitely an A tier, but below Oni in the sense of I can't do long shots like I can with Huntress. I just can't. I wish I could snipe someone from like across the map with this damn harpoon gun. And his shots are satisfying, but it's not the same. I'm sorry. It's not the same as a Huntress. Whereas Huntress, you could just be like, oh, there he is. Whereas, where I feel like Deathslinger excels in both his trick shots, good cheeky shots, things like that, satisfying shots. I think he excels at that very well. But it's not the same level as Huntress for me. I'm sorry, Rainy, but that's where he's being placed in my list. And I'm going to get absolutely flamed. But that's just, that's how I think. I think he's good. And when it comes to his add-ons, I've only seen Slingers use 3 add-ons. 2 of his reloads, and 1 being the Iridescent Coin. And very rarely do I see the Iridescent Coin in play. If anything, it is the best Eerie add-on when it comes to the exposed status effect, because it sets a limit and you have to be precise. It rewards good gameplay. Like, oh, you got the guy at distance, you were able to get the shot, and you reeled him in, you get rewarded by getting the 1 down. I think that's a good rounded add-on. I have no complaints about that Iridescent add-on, because most times they're either mid or out of range. So you have to be a skilled Deathslinger and know his harpoon range to do it. And I think that's nice. And, you know, I have no problem with the reload add-ons because his reload can take some time and he moves incredibly slow when you're reloading. So getting a fast reload, fast wipe animation, I feel like that's why that's why he excels at, you know, save the best for last. He can use them very efficiently, and I feel like the new alien perk will be perfect with him. So definitely those. All right, next one is Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head, guys, I'm just gonna say this right now. He's a 50-50 for me. Because most times he's played very tunnely like lately, and I'm very average with him, and he feels very clunky. He's a very clunky killer, which is unfortunate because I think his power is really cool. His stylization is really cool, but even when it comes to his well-roundedness, it's also 50-50. I feel like I have to run only these 2 add-ons, which are the range add-ons, to get any kind of like, oh, okay, now it makes him stronger, or like it actually feels like you're doing anything. Because I'm going to say this right now, his add-ons are complete crap. They are not good. They are not useful in any way. Even his iridescents are terrible. Only 2 add-ons, which are the 2 range add-ons, make this killer really, really good. And of course, again, with the clunkiness, do I think he's a great addition to DBD? I think he's really cool. I love his audio. I love his cosmetics. I think they're all great. I think good job. But the clunkiness kind of takes away from that. And if you have good survivors, it makes it very difficult using his power. Again, that just comes down to the mechanical work of him. I feel like the mechanical work can get a little more love as well as the add-ons. But overall, that's where he's. All right. Next one is Blight. Blight. Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. Right above Spirit. Fun game playing as and against. It's fun looping. It's fun juking. I think he's well-rounded with his power at base kit. Now, when it comes to his add-ons, however, they are stupid. It's like it's the reverse opposite of Pig. Oh, someone is really strong, we're gonna buff Blight, nerf Pig. That's that's the mentality I feel like just happens. And all of his add-ons, although yes, very strong, like I can't say that I don't know of any add-on that's actually not good. They're actually really interesting. Each one is unique, but Blight just has really strong add-ons and stuff. That's the only problem I have with him. Otherwise, his power, his ability is very unique in the sense of, I don't know one game of first person where you have to bounce off a wall to get a hit. You know, most times it's just like, there he is, get the hit. Whereas Blight, if you bounce once, now you can get the hit, and it rewards you for this very fun gameplay of speed and accuracy, and I like it. And it doesn't feel oppressive. It actually feels really smooth. It's not clunky with those mechanics, so he's fun. He's very fun. All right, next one is Twins. Twins, okay, Twins, I'm just going to say this right now. Playing as Twins is clunky, right there with Pyramid Head. Playing against Twins, I feel like it's too easy because it's so easy to be just in two pairs and handle Victor the right way. But again, in pubs, it's a different story because people don't like being, again, losing a health state. They don't like being slugged. There's so many things that people can be so picky about. But for me, that stuff doesn't bother me because here's the thing. Twins can only be played one way. She cannot be played other ways because she gets punished for that because of her clunkiness, because of the slow times, because of that. And so it makes her have to do one specific playstyle just to keep up pace, because once the survivors get moving, she loses that pace. Once the gens get done, she loses that pace. And the best way for her to suppress that pace is taking out 1 to 2 people at a time. So when you have a good team who stays in pairs, her power becomes negligent. And so it makes her very difficult. So I don't have a problem with Twins. I don't have a problem with it. It's just her mechanics. When it comes to well-roundedness, the add-ons also need a little more love. And I feel like that puts her in the bottom of the 50-50. Because you can have a good time or you can have a bad time playing as, against. Add-ons, you know, some are good, some are bad. There's just no in-between. Playstyle, really only one playstyle that it promotes. And when it comes to details, I like the power. It's unique. Again, you can play as 2 people. I think that's really, really well done. And you can suppress the map in a unique way, get information because of Victor's radius himself. So overall, I feel like the Twins are good in that area. But I think that they are clunky, again. So it's a 50-50 for me. You know, sometimes I can have a good Twins match. Other times I can't because, let's be honest, it's frustrating with that long-ass cooldown or that long-ass transition between the 2 characters. I feel that's very, very, very hard, and I don't think that's healthy. And I think Twins needs to get buffed in the sense of transition. Cooldown, you know, shave it off a little bit, but, like, again, the best way to counter Twins is stay in pairs, but stay in pairs far away from each other, which makes sense for the gimmick of, you know, they're twins. It's 2 people. Why not have 2 people, you know, to counterplay that? I like it. So I'm fine with that, but she is the bottom of my B tier in that sense, which is unfortunate because I thought the idea of having, you know, a Twins character conjoin Twins and stuff like that, I thought that was a really creative idea in the sense of that, which is unfortunate. But which also brings me to another unfortunate killer, which is a Trickster. Now, okay, first of all, why play Trickster and hit someone 5 times when you can play Huntress and hit someone once? Let me start with that. So playing as him, it feels boring. Playing against him also feels boring in the sense it's like, okay, dude, just like stop poking me and just hit me already. Like, here's one thing that annoys me is that when I have a Trickster who decides to do more of their knives when I'm right in front of them instead of hit me, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get to a pallet and I'm going to stun the crap out of you because you decided to waste your time and do the blades instead of actually just M1ing me. Just M1 me if I'm in your grill and then use the blades at distance. But even then, at distance, I can still evade you because guess what? Break line of sight, stay behind cover, and you have to hit me more than once. It's ridiculous. It's boring. It's sad. And he's also 110. I'd rather be walking my dog because that's fun. This is not fun. I'm saying that right now. Now we're getting into some really interesting killers here. So, First things first is Nemesis. Nemesis is a cool killer when it comes to, you know, his audio and his passive, which are the zombies. I think that adds a really cool mechanic, and he's the first one to have NPCs roam around the map, which I think is really cool. I think that's really, really, really nice little detail. However, his intimidation factor, unlike what it was in Resident Evil 2, dropped like a rock. He's not intimidating. His tentacle makes you kind of laugh a little bit, because if he misses it, you're just like, you know, so like he's more fun in the sense of like you can get an entertaining game out of him, but I wouldn't say that he's the intimidation factor that he used to be. So I would have to say that he's below Michael in a sense, but he's definitely above like a, I'm sorry. That makes sense. That makes more. Because at least with his power, once you get him up to tier 3, he can be a really, really like palette destroying demon. And just say no to loops. But before that, it's a really slow start. And if you have a good team, guess what? They are going to pre-drop and deny that first tier for as long as possible, because once they get those generators done and you're at tier 2 just entering it, you still have one more tier to get to make yourself really deadly. That's just the reality of it. So, yeah. Otherwise, you know, sometimes his passive is more effective than that, and then that's the zombies controlling the map. And even those don't work sometimes because they have weird pathing. Let's just leave it at that. So, yeah. Alright, next one up is Pinhead. Pinhead, much like Plague, has the ability to control the map in a very oppressive way. He brings another objective that's necessity to the game, and if you don't do it, guess what? You're gonna get punished for it. I do like the idea of him in Chase, where he can slow you down with chains, and if you play it right, you can play him really good. He's more of a challenge, but I wouldn't say he's the best killer, and there are certain things that you can do with Pinhead that make it seem very ridiculous and be like, that's just terrible. So I would say he is definitely 50-50, but he's above Pyramid Head in the sense that his ability is smooth, it's not clunky. So he's a 50-50. You can have a really good match with him, or you just don't have a good time. And if you don't have a team, he's really, really oppressive, and it can feel just like a terrible game. And his add-ons, I have nothing to complain about. I don't feel like he's a bad killer. Like, he's not. Like, he's actually quite well-rounded in that sense. And, you know, I do wish that they add more cosmetics and, like, details of those killers, and I think his, you know, overall power and the chain hunt are really cool. They're fascinating. You know, they're fun. And using the chain to slow down survivors, I think that's cool. But overall, it can be 50-50 in a pub match when you're playing solo, and then when you're playing in a team, it can be like, okay, well, we messed up, therefore he capitalized on it. Like, that makes sense. Whereas in a Swift, it can be. Whereas if you're not in a Swift and you're soloing, it's terrible. And for those who don't know what a Swift is, it's survive with friends. So you're basically just playing survivors against a random killer. And then now we got Artist. So Artist, I'm gonna say this right now, fun game, incredibly high skill ceiling. Incredibly high. The skill ceiling on Artist is really, really high, and if you don't know her add-ons, which are very, very particular, it can be very hard. And in that sense, I'm going to put Artist, because of those add-ons alone, and, you know, the skill ceiling of that, I would put it, for me, like, it could be satisfying getting those long shots, but again, I'm average when it comes to Artist. I would say definitely here in the A tier, because with a good artist, they can oppress a map very, very efficiently. They know how to efficiently use their crows. They know how to use them at loops. They know how to fake them. They know how to really do well at them. I'm still learning that sort of thing when I play Artist. She has really good potential, both tracking and chasing. But overall, she can be very, very, very hold W, and so hold the W to get the W. Essentially, that's what it can kind of feel like from time to time, just depending on who you are. But if you're a skilled artist, congrats to you. Like, seriously, like, you get my vote, my friend. You get my vote. All right, next one. A killer that made her way from being a C tier killer to A tier killer, Sadako. Her passive has been buffed. She has gotten reworks to her add-ons. She is now a strong killer. Playing against her is like playing, again, with a overall power oppressive, map oppressive ability. And it, for me, is not a 50-50, actually. For me, it would be below the Plague, because with Plague, it's risk and reward, whereas Sadako, it can be risk and reward, but when done right. You have to play it specifically, use certain add-ons, and you have to kind of spam her teleport quite a lot, even to places that you don't want to, depending on if survivors get the tapes or not. But she can still be strong. If anything, you know, being able to get a Mori or like a kill from her passive is easier than Pig. That goes without saying. So definitely Sadako in that sense, much unique in the sense of juggling her tapes and everything, making an actual threat. Because beforehand, no one would touch the tapes. No one would ever touch the TV tapes before her rework power. That was just the reality of it, because her passive was weak, and that's all she had running for her, and that's still all she has running for her, because she's an M1 killer. She's an M1 killer that can go invisible, and she's basically the Wraith, but with a passive ability that punishes survivors if they're careless. And against a good team, you can punish Sadako, but because of these new upgrades to her and these buffs, she's actually a formidable killer now. And you have to be very careful. So yeah, overall, they go over in the A tier for challenging. So that's for damn sure. Next one that we have is the Dredge. Dredge, I find a very unique killer, both cosmetically and sound-wise and everything like that. The design is well done. Playing as the Dredge and against the Dredge, if you're doing it casually and you're a casual player, Dredge is a good killer once you've kind of gotten the basics down. He's a really good killer. In chases, he can shut down a loop, but again, it's like Artist, hold W when that is done. If you can't and you're stuck at the loop, stay at the loop, because you can get yourself into a nice 50-50 mind game. If you're into those things, you know, you find those chases kind of fun, do it. And if you're playing casually and you're just trying to sneak up on people, it's fun. He's a great killer if you're doing customs with 5 other friends that you have, and surprising people and being sneaky. Especially on Midwich, I feel like he's a fun killer on that map, because there's so many lockers and it makes it a very entertaining game. And I think he brings that well to the game. And I think that's really cool. Plus, it's nice to have a creature in the game after such a long period of humanoid or human type of killers. So having a creature in the game is really good. So overall, I would definitely say he is, I would have to say, right up there with Deathslinger in the sense of just, you know, overall fun. You can have a lot of good times with that killer and everything. So yeah, that's where he would go. Definitely a fun game. All right, here it comes. So for those who know me, you'll probably know that I hate Wesker. But a lot of people hate Wesker for one reason only. It's not because of his power. I've used his power. It's a lot of fun. He's a very fun killer. Reason why I don't like Wesker, because his pick rate is at the top of the charts, and 9 times out of 10, you are going to get a Wesker. That's the reality of that killer. He is so popular. He is so fun that you will get him more times than you will any other killer in this game. And that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. This killer is used so many times. I did a statistic with Nightlight. It's a website that you can use to track your progress. But I get him 8 times out of 10 games. I will get him 8 times. It's nuts. And it gets annoying because, you know, playing against the same killer can feel boring. It can feel annoying. You don't start to not like it. He's a good killer. His power is really well rounded at base kit. His add-ons, I mean, they're okay. You know, I think he's fine without his add-ons. Like, that's how good he is. But he's used so much that it makes it not as fun. And so for that, he goes below Mikey Boy. I'm sorry, but he just does for me. Because it's just, you know, you go against a killer so many times that when you're not getting other killers, even terrible ones, it feels like you're just playing the same game over and over and over again. Technically you are, but I mean, like, even the sense of killers, it's just the repetition. That's what bugs me the most. And even when you play as him, that thought kind of rolls in the back of your head, because now you're just another Wesker to a lot of other players. And, you know, sometimes you'll get comments like, you're like the 10th Wesker I've had already in a row. And that's the reality. That happens. You know, you can be like that, and it can be that situation because he has such a high pick rate. He's a fun killer. He's a fun killer to juke. He's a fun killer to play as. It's really fun being able to throw someone across the map. No other killer does that. It's fun. Makes sense. Okay, great. You know, but it's just because of that repetition and that constant, you know, it's always Wesker. That's what makes it hard for me to enjoy him as a killer. I think if his pick rate was more on average, I think I would enjoy going against him. I really would. I'd probably be putting him right up here with Blight. But because, you know, it's just like I feel like I'm going against him constantly, it's just, you know, he goes down lower in my tier. All right, next one. Next one is the Knight. Now, we all know that the playstyles of the Knight very similar to another killer that is about to come up next, but we're going to get to that. The Knight, when played correctly and as a chase, and someone has a good understanding of their power, can be a really cool chase. But because of the idea that people keep using him for tunneling, for camping, or holding a 3-gen, puts Knight at a 50-50 right about there. Right in the middle. Because the power is smooth, but not reliable. And the playstyle that majority of people use him as makes it hard. And it makes it sad. Because I think the idea of, you know, outpositioning, using bots to move across the map and make patrols, I think that's cool. I think that's like a really fascinating thing to do. But the current style that he's played in, you know, it takes away that opportunity to get creative with this killer and create pressure. And I've seen people use him chase-wise and use him effectively and use those different characters in different ways. So, again, that's 50-50. I wish that his playstyle that people would play in would be more versatile, but unfortunately that's not the case with this killer. A lot of people like to use him because it's, you know, there are certain things that make it easy. Holding a 3-gen, camping, you name it. He can do that well. But here it comes. That leads to the next killer. Skull Merchant. Oh boy. Now, I did make a video on Skull Merchant. Just recently, it just came out. If you want to check that out, I'll put a little card up in the corner here. But oh god, she is a terrible killer. The current playstyle and the power allow her to hold a game for an entire hour till the server closes. No, thank you. That's poor. She's a rushed killer. There's no effort put into her design whatsoever. Her add-ons are expensive to play a certain playstyle, be that Chase Merchant or what I have designed with my Terror Radius one. You can take a look up there, up in the corner with the card that just came up, or you can take a look at it on my channel. Because I was just trying to promote a different playstyle, because the 3-genning is terrible. It is god-awful. And she's just a rushed killer. Her backstory is just as cringe. You know, like that entire hour, do you realize that I could be walking my dog, I could be doing the dishes, I could be in 3 other matches. Like, just get me out of the game, you know? So, like, it's just a terrible playstyle. But right now, that's the condition she is. Now, Behavior did say that they're going to make changes to her and Freddy about this 3-genning situation in her drones. That was good to hear. That was music to my ears, and I'm hoping that they do something about that. They need to, because that would really, really hurt new players. If you're a new player, you go against somebody, because MMR is weird, who's playing a Skull Merchant 3-gen, that person's in that game for an hour not doing jack. They are going to quit. They're going to say this game is boring, and they are going to lose. They're just not going to recommend it to anybody. And this is the kind of killer that I feel is just poor design. Add-ons are crap, and half of our add-ons help out with guarding a 3-gen. Like, what in the actual WTF is that? It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's not healthy. It promotes that playstyle. You have to spend a ridiculous amount of blood points just to get a better playstyle. It's not great. It's not great. I prefer playing Chase Merchant or Terra Radius Merchant. That's the type of merchants I play are Chase Merchant and Terra Radius Merchant, because guess what? At the end of the match, it gets done in an average match time, not the hour, because I want to be able to go to the next match and make some blood points. Thank you very much. And, you know, getting her daily is freaking easy. I can't complain about that. I like blood points, and I'm saving up for the alien one. And speaking of sci-fi, now we go into the Singularity. Singularity, our first sci-fi killer, technically, even though I feel Stranger Things is more sci-fi, is also sci-fi, but it's more like monster sci-fi, I guess you could say. But Singularity, I feel, is a underappreciated killer. I think Singularity is a good killer. I think they're A-tier fun when it comes to chase. Playing as takes a lot of skill, but it's good skill. And I find it very fun, and you have to be like all over the place. If you're someone with like that you just got like an attention span and you're able to really multitask, this is the killer for you. I highly recommend this killer. He's really good. And as a challenge to both you as playing and playing against, because you can get some really good, interesting chases out of it. You can learn a lot of things from this killer. His add-ons are really interesting. His playstyles, you can play very unique and probably some really weird playstyles with this killer. I haven't found them because I haven't played a lot of Singularity to get an idea of it. But overall, I like playing against the Singularity. And I would put him, I'd put him right around where Wesker is, honestly. In the sense of, like, I wish people kind of played him a little bit more. You know, I think it's a really cool concept, and the design is unique. It's not human. You know, I like it. And now, the one we've all been waiting for, the Xenomorph. I'm going to say this right now. If this video is probably going to come out day of, or just before, probably day of. But right now, this is recorded before Xeno comes out, supposedly. That Xeno comes out. And I gotta say, I played the PTB from the time it unlocked to the time it closed, and I was never disappointed. Every game was fun playing as and against. The mobility of this killer is spot on. They're so well rounded. The power is easy to understand. It's not overly complicated. The counterplay is well balanced. And the overall design, the Mori, everything like that is top tier. Xeno goes right up there with Huntress, in my opinion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my tier list for killers who I find fun or unfun. And this is what I have. Let me know what you think about this list, and give me your opinions on what you think some killers should be at. And tell me what you think that you feel like some killers are, you know, for you. Overall, like, looking at this tier list, I don't really have much of a problem with a lot of killers. Only the ones that I feel like need to be really betterly managed, you know, and that goes for down here. They need some either mechanical work done, they need some something tweaked with their add-ons or builds, their mechanics, things like that, or just overall, you know, adapt better play styles that I feel like are better. Like, I can already think of, like, Pig. I feel like her RNG is against her. Skull Merchant, yeah, like, they need to just rework the drones. Have them tag a survivor and then die out and have the tag on them. Great. Now she's a tracking killer, but she's also effective in chase now. Makes her a threat. I like that. I'd rather have that trade-off than what they have for her now. Trickster, they got to do something better with those blades. I'm sorry, it's just boring. Freddy, like Skull Merchant, I got my pronouns wrong. Jesus. He needs some reworks. He needs some reworks because there's nothing for him. But overall, this is my tier list, and Xeno, I am super excited, and will bring a healthy amount of people to the community, and I am going to be playing Xeno a lot. If anything, we're going to have Xeno and Wesker right up there with pick rate, so be ready for that. We're gonna have a lot of that. But overall, this is my tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to drop a like. And yeah, be sure to check out my other videos that you'll see on screen. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video, everybody. Stay safe and have a good rest of your day.